Welcome back, Fish Talk Live. This is a special edition, and Billy, we've got a gag order in effect.
Yes, we do.
So we're going to be talking about something very important to our industry, to our fisheries, and we're going to figure out how we can come together and get a lot of questions asked tonight, Billy.
Absolutely.
A lot of questions answered.
A lot of questions answered.
A lot of questions asked, a lot of questions answered, and we have the two perfect people to get those answers. So we've got Andy Strelchek from NOAA Fisheries.
Yes.
And then, of course, we got Captain Dylan Hubbard, which all y'all know Dylan, from angler, fisherman, all the above. Our next governor of Florida. So we're very excited to have both of these special guests on this show tonight. Now, we want to keep this civil.
Yep.
We want to keep this professional.
Absolutely.
And we want to get some answers.
Yep. That's about all we're here for.
That's
Absolutely.
It. So, but before we get started, again, this is a special edition of Fish Talk Live. Right now, we are in our break, but this subject's too important to pass up on.
It's one we couldn't not talk about.
That's it. So we'll be back in September for our regular episodes, but tonight we're cutting straight to the topic of the evening, and that's gag grouper, the 2025 season.
Yep.
But thank you to all of our sponsors. We love you guys. Thank you to all the viewers. We love you. And you ready to get started?
Let's get the show on the road.
All right. So first, I'd say let's bring on Andy Strelchek from NOAA Fisheries.
Absolutely.
So Andy's the regional administrator of NOAA Fisheries, and we've had him on the show before. Very informational. He was able to really get our questions answered quickly, gave us the data and the reason behind
how
it.
they get their data, absolutely.
So I'm looking forward to talking with him. So Andy, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Perfect.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Hey,
thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for coming back, Andy. We had such a great conversation with you the last time. We're really looking forward to this go around. So Andy, I guess let's go ahead and get started. How did we come to the conclusion? Let's just cut straight to the chase here. So, how do we come to the conclusion of the 14-day gag grouper season in 2025? How did we get there compared to last season? Was last season successful with the 14-day season? And I guess let's just start there.
Well, I'll start with the success part, right? So I think success depends on, whether you went fishing and obviously had a good fishing trip. Gag is a tough species for us to manage right now. We're in a rebuilding plan for gag. We obviously want this population to increase in size and allow for more fishing opportunities. And so last year obviously was a short season. We got the landings data in, and based on that landings data, we did exceed the quota for last year, and so that brought us to this year. And one of the things with the rebuilding plan is we have to pay back an overage, right? So if we exceed the quota from last year, we got to pay it back. And even though the quotas are going up year after year because the population's rebuilding, that meant that we had to reduce this year's quota by about 90,000 pounds, resulting in about the same length season as we had last year. So although disappointing to anglers, our goal is to continue to increase this population, hopefully avoid these overages in the future, and be able to get some nice quota increases in place.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And Andy, so real quick, just curious, how did NOAA Fisheries come up with the actual dates? September 1st to September 14th.
Yes, at first we worked very closely with the state of Florida, the Fish and Wildlife Commission. Last year I talked about how we were switching over to using the state survey data. And so we rely on the state survey data for private recreational landings. And then we also collect data from headboats like what Dylan Hubbard operates, as well as through the charter survey that's done and has been done in the Gulf for many, many years. So we combine all that data, and based on the sum total of all those landings from those 3 surveys, we determine, how much was caught relative to the quota, and we estimate the length of the fishing season based on that kind of average daily catch rate that we had from the prior year fishing.
Okay. So again, we're recreational fishermen, Andy. We Billy and I both just do the shallow water stuff.
Yep,
the science stuff, we're going to leave that part to you and Dylan on that for sure. But I guess my first question is, we had a successful season last year. I'm assuming numbers went up fishing wise. Yes.
Yep. Fishing-wise,
did the male? So if I remember from our last conversation, it was the male species of grouper that was the problem child, right? The lack of male species. So has there been an increase that you guys have seen in recent data collections, or?
Yeah, that work's ongoing right now. So last stock assessment, population assessment, where we evaluated the health and status of GAG was in 2022. We actually have something starting now that will give us a good read on how the rebuilding plan is doing and what progress we're being made. And so we're waiting for a new population assessment that should be delivered next year. And that'll obviously collect data on the whole population. It uses data from anglers. So if you're intercepted at the dock and we sample your fish, we're gathering data and information about the size, age, growth of those fish. But it's also collecting data from surveys that we conduct at sea throughout the Gulf of America. A lot of data goes into those populations assessments. And because these are long-lived species, GAG lives to over 20 years of age, right? We want this to allow for like 3 or 4 years between assessments to really give us an indication of how things are changing in the population and if those male percentages are going up.
Okay.
Nice.
All right, so we were able to collect a lot of questions, Andy, from viewers, local fishermen. I do want to go over those here shortly. A lot of those you've actually answered, already. But before we get into that, if you don't mind, I want to bring Dylan on now, and I want to get his opinion on, the angler side mixed with the, being a part of the gazillion boards he's on too. So we'll be right back with you, Andy. So Dylan, ladies and gentlemen, Captain Dylan Hubbard, there he is. The next governor of Florida.
I wouldn't go that far, but I appreciate it.
If you could just start remembering people's names, Dylan, then you could be a governor.
Yeah, I got a long way to go on that.
Hey, Dylan, thank you again for joining us. So we just introduced Andy, reintroduced him. We had both you guys on the show. Was it last season or the season before?
It was last year.
Last season, yeah.
Yep.
So,
seasoning.
From Dylan, from your eyes, from your brain, from what you've seen in all these different meetings, and obviously talking to everybody and doing research. I mean, have you seen a positive effect from that short season we had last year? And what's your honest opinion on another 14-day season?
Well, I don't think you can. It's hard to say a positive effect from such a short season last year, right? Because from a business standpoint, it's hard to call that positive. From a recreational standpoint, it's hard to call that positive. But if you're looking at the fish and asking me my opinion on the biomass and the health of the population, I think the regulations have succeeded. I mean, the fishery is bouncing back like crazy. We're seeing some of the best gag fishing we've seen in the last 10 years. Now, I think gag personally might have taken a little bit of a hit, got a little bit tougher, and it's getting better. I think everybody would agree that we're seeing a better and better gag grouper fishery. Now, was it really bad? Maybe we can't all agree on if it was bad or not, but I think we can all agree now, today, it's better than it was the last couple of years, and it seems to only be getting better. Now, I think personally, some of the stuff that's coming is going to really help. Like Andy alluded to the fact that they have stuff in the works right now. There's a lot of science ongoing. There's an interim analysis that hopefully we're going to see in San Antonio next week at the Gulf Council meeting. But I know for a fact we're going to see it at the Reef Fish Advisory Panel meeting coming up in November. And I'm excited for that because that interim analysis is going to update the science and potentially help us to increase catch levels for gag grouper next year. And then, like Andy said, as well, we have a stock assessment coming, and that stock assessment should definitely help because right now it's 2025. We're being managed on CDAR 72 for gag grouper, which had a terminal year of data of 2019. I believe that stock assessment concluded in 2021, and it's really, really out of date that we are being managed on data from 2019 in 2025. So I'm looking forward to next year's stock assessment, this year's interim analysis. And I'm hopeful and keeping all my fingers and toes crossed that the science will start to match what we're seeing on the water. And that's a frustration for everybody, but it's a part of the process. And unfortunately, it's what we have to work within. And it's extremely frustrating.
To say
the least.
Slow process.
Billy and I were talking before the show, and I told Billy, I said, I'm sure you share the same boat on this one, is anytime I hear frustrations that are based off of economic, that's my red flag on my end, because without a grouper fishery, right?
Yeah.
We can't do grouper fishing.
There's absolutely nothing.
It's going to die. And so, I really want to be scientific based tonight and kind of leave the economic. We all understand it's tough cramming 14 days in that somebody that's just so die hard on going out and, catching gag grouper and shallow water, deep water, whatever boat they want to be in. But we got to look long term too. So, I obviously, both Billy and I, we trust your opinion because you are in the same boat as us with the economic value of gag grouper
Just
fishery.
a slightly bigger boat.
A lot more.
And keep in mind that part of the regulation dictates, part of MSA, one of the national standards is that they have to take into account the economic impacts of the regulation. So that is a part of the conversation. But you're right, the fish is what's most important in the biomass and the health of the population. And I think, like I said earlier, I think everybody would agree we're seeing more gags, bigger gags, and I'm hopeful. And like I said, keeping my fingers and toes crossed that the science is going to start catching up to what we're seeing on the water.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so if we're bringing economic into this, then one of my biggest issues for this season is the September 1st to September 14th.
The timing of the season.
The timing of the season.
Great point. And the reason why, there's a good reason why. Because we all want gag grouper. It would be nice if they opened December 1st, right? Because gags are in shallow, they're easy to catch. But if they're easy to catch, that means you don't have to go out as far. That means the catch level's higher, the catch rate's higher. So if more people are able to access them because they're closer to shore, they're easier to catch because they're more aggressive when that water's cold, what happens to the season? The quota stays the same, but that means the season gets even shorter. So when they originally, a couple years ago, evaluated when to start the season, the reason September 1st was chosen because it gave us potentially like a 2 or 3 month season. Whereas if we started December 1st, based on that quota 2-3 years ago, it would have been like a 10-day season. So it is exponentially shorter because catch rates are higher in December. So I agree with you. Personally, I would much rather catch gags when they're shallow, when they're super aggressive, in that cooler water between cold fronts. But unfortunately, the catch rate and the ease of catching them would be so high that the season would be, it would be over before it started.
Yeah, and that really wasn't even my point, though. My Labor Day weekend. We're all busy on Labor Day weekend. Doesn't matter what type of fishery is in season or not. Snook season opens September 1st. Scallop season's going until September 24th in our region. So I'm being selfish when I talk here.
Yeah.
So I would like to see October 1st.
And my only thought to it is, going off of last year's conversations, talking about the males that are offshore, their numbers were smaller. It almost seems like when the fish are not inshore and we are forced to go out into that depth, is that a higher risk of catching those larger males that they're trying to protect per se? And that was my only thought process to it, was like, it seems like they're forcing us to go into that dangerous region of catching the larger males.
It's part of the conversation for sure. That's been brought up and talked out for sure. But I think from a economic standpoint and from a recreational standpoint, the opportunity to catch fish is important, right?
Absolutely.
And if the season's short, you don't have that opportunity to catch fish. Like, imagine if we started it in December or November when the gags are in close and the fishing's really good. That season would be really short, even shorter. So we're talking about 14 days in the beginning of September. We'd probably see like maybe 4 days if it was in November or December. And then what if we got there and a cold front came? A big, strong north wind blowing 20, 30 knots. We'd miss the whole season.
Yeah.
And then we'd all really be frustrated.
So I guess this probably, honestly, both you guys can answer this question, but I really would like to hear from Andy as well. I mean, is there opportunity for this season to grow at all? That you said that, you're saying that earlier. There is. Okay. So, Bree,
I'll let Andy speak to it.
I was going to say, so Bree, if we could bounce over to Andy real quick.
Yeah, great question. So there's two things. One, the Gulf Council could always reconsider the start date of the season, right? So that's something that's always an option for the council to come back and say, okay, we don't want to start at September 1, we want to open at October 1 or some other time frame. And Dylan's obviously exactly right in terms of their rationale, in terms of why they set it in September. In terms of the season's growing, yeah, that's all contingent on higher catch limits, right? The more fish we can allow to be harvested, the more days, obviously, you have to be able to go out and fish. The rebuilding plan is intended, obviously, to increase quotas over time. And so, for example, if we hadn't exceeded the quota last year by 90,000 pounds, we would have 90,000 pounds more fish to go out and harvest this year, which would have added days to the season. Next year, the quota is supposed to go up another 100,000 pounds, right? So there's these incremental increases. And if we can avoid some of these overages, start constraining catch, do a better job maybe monitoring, then yeah, there is opportunity obviously to extend those fishing seasons. And then with the new population assessment and interim analysis that Dylan mentioned, obviously if that indicates we're ahead of schedule with rebuilding or things are looking better than we had previously estimated, that'll all be part of the equation then in terms of future catch levels and fishing seasons lengths.
Okay. So as anglers, we need to report our catches. We need to make sure and get those numbers out there, keep them updated. I know FWC biologists did a great job here at the marina specifically.
They were here quite a bit.
They were here a lot. And it was really cool learning about the different, somebody used the term for it, they literally dissect things out of, remember the...
I know they did a redfish ear bone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of cool seeing
ways
that.
They go through it. That's pretty cool.
So that is the data collection, though, correct? The FW researchers and then online surveys. Is there anything else that we can do as anglers to get our data reported, or?
Yeah, so a lot of the natural reaction when people are frustrated about regulations is they just don't want to be, intercepted and sampled, and that obviously hurts data collection because that means there's less data that's then coming in to help us manage these fisheries. So cooperating with people that are interviewing at the dock, allowing them to sample your fish is all critical to obviously management. We are partnering obviously with the state of Florida and other states in the Gulf to manage these resources. And so it is a state-federal partnership that we work closely with. Other things that people can do, you mentioned the mail surveys that come in. So that's obviously a way to report your fishing effort when those are sent to you. And then we have opportunities. Dylan's participated in some of it. Other captains have, where you could actually get involved in cooperative research projects, right? Academic institutions that receive funding, or NOAA Fisheries is often looking for people to assist us with research and work that we're doing. And so if you have an interest in that, obviously we can put you in touch with key researchers to help with that work.
Yeah, we would love to.
That'd be pretty cool.
You know, Dylan was saying something earlier about easier to catch these gag grouper in shallow water in December. In our area specifically, I could take you out right now and show you a lot of grouper. And I'm sure you hear that all the time, but we have consistently shallow water grouper year round. So the time of the year really doesn't dictate it for us as far as shallow water grouper. And that's one of the other things I'm wondering too is our shallower waters seeing more fish
Than other areas.
and is that, you know, could that help with data collection? So we would love to participate, and anytime that we get to go out and jump in the water and show fish, we'd love to do it. So
Gag's an interesting species. We talked about it last year, right? Its life history is the older adults are in the deeper water. But when they reproduce and spawn, their young end up in the seagrass beds, right? And you have plenty of seagrass beds in your area. And then as they mature and get larger, obviously they move offshore. So our expectation with the successful rebuilding plan and what your observations and Dylan's are is that if we're reducing fishing mortality, those fish are going to really rear back in abundance. And that's exactly what we would expect in terms of the reaction to a rebuilding plan.
well, Andy, if you don't mind, let's go through some of these questions from our viewers. We'll start with the first one. So, and just stop me. I'm just going to read through them. So if we've already answered it, if you just kind of reiterate on it. How can a fishery be deemed overfished without an updated stock assessment?
Yeah, so the status is based on the previous stock assessment at this point. We don't change the overfish determination until we get another stock assessment. Overfishing can be determined based on whether or not we're exceeding a certain limit of allowable harvest from one year to the next. And so we do monitor how much is caught relative to that biological overfishing limit.
What is the difference between increased fishing pressure and actual overfishing?
In simple terms, overfishing is you're essentially removing fish from a population at a non-sustainable rate, right? So increasing fishing pressure could mean that you had low fishing pressure and it's been increasing over time, but it's still sustainable. It's just if that continues, it could become unsustainable. And so we often see this with new or developing fisheries where pressure could increase over time, but not necessarily result in overfishing.
Okay.
What specific stock assessment number is subtracted from the catch data to determine whether a species is overfished?
Not quite clear on the question, but I think what they're really getting at is how do we determine whether a fishery is overfished or not. And so we look at the age distribution of the population, the size of the population, relative to a benchmark that's set by fishery managers. And if it falls below that, the biomass, the abundance of the population is depleted below some certain threshold, then we determine the population to be overfished. And that triggers under our federal regulations what we call a rebuilding plan, where we have to then rebuild the stock to above that level.
So technically where we're at. Rebuilt. Yeah.
If a fishery is deemed overfished, why is the response a full Gulf Council closure rather than a zone-based closure, as in done with other species?
It doesn't have to be a full base closure, right? So the Gulf Council has a lot of flexibility with regard to the management decisions they make. And one of the recommendations out of a recent initiative by the Gulf Council is to actually look at some regional-based management for gag and other species, amberjack being another one. So there's certainly opportunities and flexibility for managers to consider other options besides a full seasonal closure.
Okay.
All right. One of the, this one, let's see, I'll ask this one, and I actually got a question of my own. Why don't square miles of habitat to catch ratios play a role in determining closures or stock health?
Yeah, so I think, if I'm understanding your question correctly, that's really kind of the gold standard that we'd love to be able to collect data at that fine a scale, right? Across all the habitat in the Gulf where GAG or other species exist, and look at the overall harvest rates from those habitats. We're not able to do that, so we have to obviously randomly sample. And a lot of the work that we do, it requires us to go out and map habitat. Then we sample randomly throughout those habitats to get a indication of the kind of health and status of the population. And one of the best metrics we have is looking at trends in abundance or the population over time. So, if we have a long enough time series, 10, 20 years, we can look at, well, how big was the population back 20 years ago, and how has that changed over time to look at the health and status of the population.
Okay. All right, so why isn't habitat density factored into stock assessments or management decisions, considering that more habitat should support more fish and therefore justify longer seasons?
Yeah, so, I don't, as I said earlier, I mean, it's really hard to kind of conduct that type of work over such a large scale. There's only so many resources we have to conduct research and sampling over a broad distribution. But we do map the distribution of habitat. We sample within those habitats, and that allows us to obviously estimate what the trends and changes in the population are doing. So it is accounted for, but more indirectly than directly. Ideally, what would be great is to be able to go out every single year and do an entire survey of all the habitat in the Gulf and be able to get estimates of abundance for those populations. That was done once with the great red snapper count, but it hasn't been repeated since, and that's because it's very, very expensive to do that type of work.
Gotcha. Good.
A lot of water to cover out there.
Yeah.
A lot of water to cover, right? That's great.
So the redfish and Lake Okeechobee one, I don't quite understand, so let's skip that one. All right, so I'm going to circle back around, I guess, to one of our questions in the beginning is the dates that were selected. So let's be more, I'm going to ask this more specific, because this one is how were the dates determined for the 14-day season and why those dates. So I guess, when was that decided? Who decided it? Is it a Gulf Council? I mean, how is that process? And can someone like Billy and I have our input as, I guess, stockholders in this?
Yeah. So the Gulf Council set the start date of the season, September 1, and then Fisheries Service, my office, working with Fish and Wildlife Commission, does projections to determine when the season would close. Those projections are based on an estimate of daily catch rates that are informed by past fishing years, as well as the quota for the current year, right? And as I mentioned, this year's quota was set, but then we also had to deduct an overage because of last year's exceedance of the quota. So bottom line is we have a quota, we divide it by the daily catch rate, that determines the total number of days the season could be open, and we start September 1 and estimate the end of the closed season based on that.
Okay. All right, so let's do this. All right. So Dylan's got something that he wants to say real quick. So let's skip over, or let's jump over to Dylan real quick, and then after. All right, go ahead, Dylan. Bree was tapping on the window. He's like, Dylan's really excited about something.
I was wondering if someone was going to see me raising my hand. No, I mean Andy hits it on the head, but Andy, I think I have a little bit of different different approach to what the question was. I mean, your question was, when was it passed? Well, part of your question was, when was it passed? It was a few years ago, I think about 3 maybe. But Andy was perfectly correct. It was based on the Gulf Council, and the Gulf Council process. What a lot of people don't realize is totally, completely participation driven. So to answer your question about how you could get involved or could you have been a part of it, 100%. So how the Gulf Council decides anything is they have a problem or they have a regulation proposal. It starts in a couple different setting like that. Generally, it starts out as a draft proposal or a draft framework. And so they go to a council meeting and they talk to the council members. Hey, this is the problem. We got to come up with a new season for gag grouper. The stock assessment said that they're undergoing overfishing and that they're overfished. We got to go into this rebuilding program. So we got to pick a new season start date, and it's going to be kind of short. So here's some options. And the council staff just throws out a couple options that they made up, essentially. And then the council discusses it and is like, hey, I don't like this. How about this? And then fishermen, you could show up to a meeting in person. Or thanks to COVID, one positive thing from COVID is virtual participation is possible. So you don't have to go to a meeting. Maybe you have a job that you have to attend. So I understand a lot of recreational people are like, I can't fly to Texas next week and attend this meeting in San Antonio. Well, you don't have to. You can give public comment remotely now, thanks to COVID. And that's been the case since COVID, since 2020. So you could participate in public comment and say, hey, these ideas are silly. This is what I think. And very, very commonly, public comment early in the process is evaluated, listened to, and considered. What people get frustrated about is they show up to a meeting and a public hearing for a public hearing draft. That is way down the line and too late, because essentially the public hearing draft is like, hey, this is what we've decided, and this is what you're going to have to deal with next year when we pass this rule next week. It's too late to really have any say. And people show up to those meetings all angry and they're like, this is BS. You should have done it this way. And they feel they're not listened to. Well, you're not listened to because you're too late in that process. You have to be involved early in the process during that draft framework or when they're formulating that public hearing document. Once it goes to a public hearing document, it's really hard to change it. And then once it goes to a public hearing, it comes back as final and they vote on it. So to answer your question, yes, you could show up to a meeting, you could join an AP, you could talk to someone like me, you could listen to our podcast, your podcast, my podcast, things that are coming up. And we're going to talk about, hey, this is coming up, like, for example, Scamp Grouper. Next year, we have a Scamp Grouper season that starts July 1st and goes to the end of the year. That was voted on by the Gulf Council, and it's in rulemaking from NOAA Fisheries right now. So next year, Scamp goes from a 12-month season to a 6-month season. And that was decided on and voted on at the Gulf Council just recently. So these are things where they put up a couple options and fishermen had to debate it. And ultimately, fishermen that were attending the meetings, fishermen that attended the public comment, and advisory panel members said to the council, this is what we want. The council voted on it and passed it.
Thank you, Dylan. So you release a lot of information on your Facebook page, on your podcast, like you were saying. Do you do those updates like, hey, this is the time that your voice can be heard? Okay.
Yes. I've been talking about Scamp Grouper now for about a year and a half. And people are like, what? There's going to be a scamp season next year? Yes.
Dylan, I feel like actually this next question is a good one for you. And this is a more of a personal question / statement, but I really would rather everyone hear it from one of you two. All right, you hear a lot of people complain about that the commercial fishing industry is what's really damaging the grouper.
We hear that so much. And what are the actual number, the percentages? Now, what I like about commercial side is that it's accurate data. As far as I know, it's accurate data. You have to input what you caught. Has to be in.
So if you have a federal reef permit, if you have the harvest reef permit, I think there's differences.
Commercial reef fish permit.
The commercial reef fish, that stuff gets put into a smaller percentage of the quota, and once it's reached, then it's over. It's over, right?
Yeah, essentially the commercial fishery is completely different from our recreational fishery. For gag grouper, there's two sectors, commercial and recreational. And before I start, I wish you would have asked Andy this question, but I'm just
We can still ask him.
Commercial is different. I am not commercial. I am a commercial business. I'm a for-hire business, for profit, but I take recreational fishermen fishing. We're considered recreational fishermen. I do operate a commercial retail market where I sell commercially caught fish to the general public, but I am not a commercial operation. So commercial fishing is different from recreational fishing. And for gags, I want to say off the top of my head, it's like a 60-40 split. 60% of the quota goes to recreational, about 40% goes to commercial. I think it might be a tiny bit off of that, but that's close. And commercial guys, everybody's like, well, we've got a 14-day season and commercial guys get to fish all year. Yes, that's true, but their quota got cut, slashed. They had a bigger loss than we did recreationally because they only have 40% of the quota. We have 60%. And on top of that, as you mentioned earlier, they're extremely, extremely regulated. When it comes to fisheries dependent science, in order to have science to gauge the health of a population, you have to have fisheries independent and fisheries dependent science. Fisheries dependent science depends on fishermen. Fisheries independent science is like the camera studies, the bottom long line index, the CMAQ trawl survey, all these scientists out there doing stuff. Whereas the fisheries dependent stuff depends on fishermen. And for recreational fishermen, they don't really know. They survey, estimate all 5 tenets of fisheries dependent science. For commercial fishermen, they know specifically census level, real time, all 5 tenets. They know how many people are out there because it's under moratorium. There's only a certain amount of commercial fishing permits issued. They know exactly how many trips they're taking because their vessels are GPS monitored in real time, 24/7, 365. They know exactly how much effort they exert, so they knew their catch per unit of effort. They know how many fish are taken and landed and how many fish are discarded. The discards on commercial side are still a little bit questionable because they're not 100% census based. So that one might be a little bit of a question mark, but the rest of it is 100% factually, like real time. And the reason why is there's so many checks and balances. They have to hail out. They have to come back to a commercially approved dock. They have to get their dock approved by the feds, and they have to have 24/7 access to the federal law enforcement officers. They have to hail in 3 hours before they land. When they land with their fish, all the fish have to be weighed and then sold to a commercial dealer with another federal license, and that commercial dealer is also responsible to report the catch. So the catch is double reported to make sure that redundancy has that check and balance. So commercial fishing is a totally different animal, and because of that real time over regulation, they are able to have different management structures, and that different management structures enable them to fish year round. Now, it's confusing on the outside, but when you look on the inside of it, it stinks. It stinks. And the commercial guys are just as upset as we are because, I mean, the commercial guys aren't able to fish for gags. They literally have I think last time I chatted with the commercial guys around our docks, they have a self-imposed 25-pound quota, trip limit. So you're only allowed 25 pounds of gags. So you're not going out fishing for gags as a commercial guy. You haven't been able to since like April because they have self-imposed limits. So it's not good on either side.
Yeah. You know, and something I was reading on that stuff you sent me earlier, Dylan, something I've never realized is when they talk about pounds, that's gutted. Correct?
Yeah, gutted weight.
Yeah, gutted weight. So it's not
interesting. Not a total.
If Jacob brings, one of his biggest grouper to the dock of a 4.5 pounder, it's actually 2 pounds or 2.5, whatever it is. But that's something I didn't realize. So because what is the quota? 310,000 pounds. So.
For commercial anglers, I know our quota is around 270, but this year, off the top of my head, our ACL or ACT is, or 210. But commercial is smaller because, again, they're only 40% of the total. So Andy might be able to speak to the specifics a little bit better than I can off the top of my head. But yeah, their quota is super small, and their quota is in gutted weight. Yes, sir.
All right, let's switch over to Andy real quick. Dylan, thank you on that one. Let's switch over to Andy. Andy, same question. And I guess really defining the difference so that what I'd like to see is that the commercial guys stop getting hit so hard by the vision of recreational, because they're getting hit just as hard, like Dylan said. So what is the exact percentage, Andy?
Exact percentage is 65% recreational, 35% commercial. As Dylan was pointing out, the commercial this year has a quota just over 200,000 pounds, so it's less obviously than the recreational. Obviously, the recreational would have been higher without that overage. But yeah, I mean, Dylan did a great job. There is just a tremendous amount of accountability measures and checks and balances with the commercial industry. It's been under moratorium for quite some time. The universe of fishermen in the commercial industry is very small relative to the number of recreational anglers. They're just heavily monitored and managed, and so that obviously allows us to track their data and information very, very closely. I will say that allocation between sectors is one of the most controversial things that I have to deal with as a fishery management council member. And it comes up quite often, right, in terms of how much should one sector get relative to the other? What's the, net benefit to the nation? What's the opportunities that this will provide recreational anglers? What's the economic value to the commercial fishery? And so I hear this quite frequently, the frustration about one sector impacting the resource more than the other. All I can say from a management standpoint is we collectively are all in this together. Obviously, the recreational sector can have a bigger impact on some fisheries, and the commercial sector may have a bigger impact on other fisheries. So it's not necessarily something that's consistent across the board, and we just try to sustainably manage the resources as a whole with strong coordination and collaboration with both sectors.
I do have a solution for you, Andy, actually. Hear me out on this one. Commercial guys harvest all the Goliath grouper they want. Recreational guys will keep
do gag.
Yeah, do the gag. And that
I'll
is.
tell you what, go ahead and put that public comment in with the Gulf Council.
See how well that goes.
They'll never listen to me. One of the questions in here is about Goliath grouper and opening that up because it's about how they eat the smaller grouper. Is that an actual fact, or have you guys ever looked into that research? Is Goliath grouper eating our gag grouper? Is there too much protection on them? What is your opinion on that?
It's a tough species to manage, right? Because they're so vulnerable to fishing mortality and overharvest. The studies that I'm aware of, and it's been a while, is that their diet is markedly different than what they're essentially eating off of your hook and line, right? And that they're essentially taking advantage of an injured fish or a fish that's been caught and harvested, but a lot of their diet is actually made up of crustaceans, lobster, other species, and not necessarily gag grouper or fish that obviously are being caught. But in terms of harvest, I know the Fish and Wildlife Commission has opened up a limited harvest for Goliath grouper. At this point, we haven't had a population assessment for Goliath grouper in probably well over a decade. It hasn't been something that has been of interest to at least pursue in terms of opening in the near term, but certainly hear a lot of complaints about the impact that Goliath grouper can have on harvested fish.
All right, so let's do this, everyone. Let's go to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the rest of these questions. We only got 88 to go. So this commercial, Billy, this is something fun. This is from our friends over the Florida Redfish series. They've got
nice.
something new to announce, and this is a little teaser. So
That's pretty exciting.
Andy, Dylan, we'll be right back. National Redfish
Pretty
Series.
wild, pretty wild.
I'm going to hit the Colorado stuff. All right, guys, we're back. All right, so let's bring up Dylan for these next couple questions. I'm curious to see what his take is on these, as again, recreational, for hire, and a very large member of the stock holders in this. So, Dylan, you there? There we go. All right. So, Dylan, what's your? I'm assuming why somebody asked this is because there probably hasn't been, but in water surveys of grouper, to your knowledge, has that been done? If it hasn't been done, what's your take on it? Should we have more visual on grouper?
More science is always better, right? So fisheries independent science, as I said before, there's fisheries dependent science, fisheries independent science. Fisheries independent science is scientists out there collecting data. They do it in a bunch of different ways. The CMAP trawl survey is one where they trawl these nets for age 0 and age 1, like phytoplankton aged fish. It's pretty wild. Then they do what a lot of people don't realize is they do camera studies. And the camera studies is huge. And the camera studies is the truth, the answer. And I think camera studies is one of the most exciting things that we have going right now, because they already have mapped the Gulf. So everybody's familiar with strike lines, charts, Seymour maps, Garmin relief shading, all these different things. What that is FWC data. That's federal data that they have to map the Gulf first with these LIDARs to be able to see where the sand is, where the rock is, where the wrecks are, the potholes, the ledges. The reason why is once they map the terrain, then they can do what's called a stratified random sample. Andy alluded to that earlier. They map and then randomly sample with these cameras. And so there's an FWRI lab right here in St. Petersburg that goes out there with cameras, and it's really cool. They open it up during 1 week a year. Man, I'm escaping the name of it, but FWC actually opens their lab and you can tour FWRI during this week. And it's really cool to see these camera rigs. And they drop these camera rigs down in these stratified random sample sites. And these cameras have 360-degree views, and they have lasers so they can actually take pictures of these fish on these sites, and they can tell their length of the fish, which is really important because you have an age length composition data table. And so the more cameras that are down there, the more length composition charts that they can create on these different species. The problem is, in today's world, they go out there and they drop all these cameras at these stratified random sample sites, and then they come back in from these long voyages, these scientific voyages, and all this data is then stuck on a computer somewhere in some dark room, and some scientist has to sit there, some biologist who's underpaid, has to sit there and watch these videos and count these fish. And it's BS. It's 2025. I mean, we have AI to do that. And that's what's being worked on right now. Moat Marine Lab and many others. There's some people over in Texas at the Hart Institute. I know Texas A&M. I know Mississippi University. There's a bunch of universities that are using AI to try to teach the AI models to be able to learn the fish. So that way, when they're out there on one of these research trips, dropping these cameras down and all that data comes back, the AI would be able to read the data real time. And by the time the ship returns, they're already transmitting that data. Because right now they spend all this money and all this time out there dropping all these cameras and looking at all these fish in the water. But then only a small portion of that footage gets actually reviewed and used, and it takes a long time to get reviewed and used. So a survey might happen, and it might be a year before that science is available to scientists. And then it takes even longer to be available to managers, whereas AI very soon could potentially real time drop a camera in the water, transmit that information to scientists, and it could really improve our interim analysis. And we can automate those interim analysis. So at the beginning of each year, these analysis could happen in a computer using AI, and they could spit it out to managers. And then all of a sudden we have more real-time responses. So to your question earlier about when's the last time a gag grouper stock assessment happened? Well, it was 2021, and it's based on 2019 data. Whereas we're very close to getting to a point where we could potentially be responding annually to it recruit falls. So like if all of a sudden we didn't see as many babies that year, maybe the quota goes down a little bit. Or if we see a lot of babies and the fishery is really healthy, we see an increase in catch levels. So it's pretty exciting stuff. There's a lot of stuff in the works, and there's a lot of positive things to look forward to, along with all this negative short seasons.
Deal.
Nice information. No, that's pretty sweet.
So you're excited about the future on this?
You have to remain positive when you look down the barrel of a 14-day gag season and the gags are everywhere. You have to remain positive, guys.
I look at it a lot like scallops. Growing up, you have a terrible scallop season. The next year, you have a great scallop season. It's just their reproduction. I mean, they are incredible critters. They really are. Gag grouper was the same thing.
Same concept.
I mean, you had incredible seasons, then you had slow seasons. They have a high reproduction cycle, right?
And they're very cyclical.
Yes.
Unlike other species, grouper species seem to be very cyclical. We have big recruitment pulses behind hurricanes and red tide events. Basically, you have a hurricane, you have a red tide event, and then you have a big recruitment pulse. And then all of a sudden, a couple years later, 3 or 4 years later, the fishery's incredible, really good. And that seemingly has been the case with these grouper species, gag and red grouper, with these life histories that associate in shallower waters. So it's pretty interesting to see. But I mean, to your earlier point about having faith, I mean, one thing that I look to as a little bit of hope is red snapper, right? We can all remember back in 2006, 2009, we started seeing a bunch of red snapper and they were starting to get really populated. Then we got to like a 3-day season and everybody was upset. I remember I hated Andy's boss and, and I had a totally different view on fisheries. And over time, getting involved and getting in the process and getting educated, now red snapper, I mean, it's the greatest conservation success story of our lifetimes, right? I mean, when I started fishing when I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, I didn't know what a red snapper was. I caught my first one when I was like 12. I was like, what's this thing? And we learned what red snapper were, and then all of a sudden there was a ton of them, and then there wasn't. And then the seasons got shorter, and we saw more and more red snapper as we were told we couldn't catch them. And then we finally started getting more and more seasons. And now look at it. I mean, we've got 126 days for private recs, federal for hire seasons, 3.5 months. I mean, things are going well. So it's interesting. I would
love to see the same turnout. That would be
right.
Great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One thing, Andy, that I can really give you a lot of credit for. I was going to bring this up earlier, and I forgot all about it. But something Dylan just said is made me think of it. Last year on the show, I brought up, I'm spitballing different ideas instead of a shorter season, and I said, well, why not just lower the limit?
Oh yeah, the one gag.
Yeah, one gag. Make it a temporary thing. That way we can have X amount. It helps the economic value of this. And I remember Andy's answer. It was, once you go low, it's hard to get back.
Yeah.
Next to impossible.
Use that fish, you never get it back.
That's it. And somewhere, I don't know if it was just social media banter or whatever it may have been, but somewhere along the lines, was there discussions about it, Dylan, going to one grouper?
Oh, yeah. There wasn't discussions about it. There was a vote, and they voted to do it. Yeah.
Andy wasn't part of that vote, was he?
No, he was, and he did not vote for it because he had to. That's an intricacy we don't need to spend time on. But he supported it, and the reason why we were talking about that in the comments on the live stream is they wanted one fish per person, because Andy talked about it earlier. The reason our season is 14 days is because of the overfishing that happened last year. The quota got exceeded. So we have to pay back. So our quota is smaller this year. So if this year we go into this 14 days and there's an overage, next year's season could potentially be shorter because there's a payback. If there's no payback, there's no overage, next year's season could be like 30, 35 days. And with this interim analysis, we could see 40, 45, maybe even more days. So, I mean, next year could be really a good quality season. I mean, better than 14 days, double or maybe even triple that. But if there's an overage, we're in a pickle. And that's the reason why the council talked about that and voted to pass that. They wanted one fish per person, but the regional administrator, Andy Strelchek, said it wasn't possible. So the rule is not put in place. Remember, the Gulf Council is an advisory body to NOAA. So they advise NOAA on the regulations. Ultimately, NOAA is responsible for the rulemaking. And in this case, they couldn't get the rule put in place in time because they were working on our emergency rule for red grouper. So thank you, Andy, for prioritizing that and keeping our red grouper open all year. So I'm not upset that we didn't get that gag grouper rule in place.
Perfect. All right, let's hear
I
from
will be
Andy.
if we go over, though.
Yeah.
It's almost one of those things where you just kind of mentally tell yourself, I'm just going to keep this one versus, you know,
At the same
You
time,
can
this is
self-regulate.
and almost if people were to do that,
Good luck with that.
versus,
I
Good
mean,
luck with that.
Dylan, you know how easy it would be for you've seen, our location, and you were talking about it. We've only got to go 5 miles to go get our gags here. You know how easy it would be to run 2 trips a day. All the guides on the dock made a pact not to do it. But awesome. Now to that same thing, if a FWC researcher did not step foot at this marina and did not get counts from us, and we did not give our counts to anybody, is it then estimated? I mean, how does that it is estimated?
It's just a guesstimate.
The more Andy alluded to that earlier is when they do those surveys, people get frustrated with regulations and how seasons are working, and they're angry. It's a 14-day season, so they want to tell the guy in flip flops with the clipboard at the boat ramp to go F himself. I'm not giving you my data. And the problem is, if they don't get data and those intercepts don't happen, then they're left guessing. Do you want the feds to guess, or do you want them to have data to work from? I think we can all agree. Guessing is not good. We've seen it, and it hasn't worked out well.
That is a fact.
So let's bring Andy back on real quick, because I do want to get his. I want to hear from him about this one grouper thing real quick. There we go. All right. So, Andy, you heard the discussion. Last long story short, last season, you and I, Billy, Dylan, we talked about cutting it down to one grouper if that would help a longer season. So what happened with that? Let's follow through to this season. If you just want to touch on what Dylan was saying.
Yeah. So Dylan had it exactly right. So we were asked to do 2 emergency rulemakings this year. One was to increase the red grouper quota, and the other was to reduce the gag bag limit. The gag bag limit request was essentially to help minimize or mitigate the potential for an overage, but would have only provided, if we even extended the season, maybe a couple of days to the fishing season for gag this year. Whereas the red grouper season, you're seeing the benefits of being able to extend the season from a midsummer closure, likely to keep it open for the rest of the year, right? So we had a look at that trade-off. We've gone through some staffing reductions recently with reductions in government employment. And so with those changes, obviously, red grouper became the priority. As you're pointing out, right, it's great if people could self-regulate, if they're able to, instead of catching 2 gag, catch 1 gag this year. It helps, obviously, with the catch estimates, and ultimately could minimize the potential for an overage. And then, as Dylan pointed out, and I've mentioned, we're expected to get a 100,000-pound increase in the quota next year if we don't exceed the quota, which is a lot of fish that could be harvested and allow for more fishing days in the future. We ultimately did consider it, but have to, at the end of the day, kind of look at those trade-offs as well as the resources we have available and prioritize the red grouper work.
Perfect. Good deal.
What I understood was to make sure you do the survey correctly.
Just do this. Yeah, do the survey.
Give the research what the research is due.
That's it. All right, and
let me. Sorry to interrupt. See, there was mention about, well, if they don't survey at your dock, are they just estimating things? Well, we're conducting surveys up and down the coast, right? And so those are selecting offshore fishing sites for the state reef fish survey for the MRIP surveys that are conducted for charter vessels. And so they're not going to show up at your dock every day. They may not show up during an entire week, right? But they are being randomly selected, and the goal is obviously to have a broad distribution of sampling sites that represent where offshore fishing activity occurs, and that is used to ultimately estimate catches.
Gotcha. Andy, quick question for you. Let's see, that was covered. Let's see. Really, honestly, yeah. I mean, all right. Here, we'll ask this one. We'll touch back. I mean, this was somewhat answered, but just it's a decent question, so it's a good question. Was only a small area surveyed, and if so, was a broader assumption made based on limited data?
So we survey large areas, not only what I just mentioned, right, in terms of, surveying docks from Key West to, the Panhandle for gag, as well as farther west. But also we conduct these fishery independent surveys, right? These are research cruises that are conducted by our agency, by state agencies like Fish and Wildlife Commission. Dylan spoke about these camera surveys that are conducted. Those occur all over the shelf in shallow and deep water, and are used to obviously evaluate the health and status of our fish population. So we are not just surveying in small areas, we are surveying in kind of broad swaths of the Gulf. But as was pointed out earlier, there's a lot of water to cover. We can't sample everywhere.
Good deal. Well, Billy, I mean, I'm out of questions. Do you have anything for Andy?
I do not. Not that. I mean, everything that was running through my head has been pretty well answered.
Yeah, and that's what I love about this, Andy. We really truly appreciate. Someone in your position is not going to make everybody happy. I'm sure you've realized that by now.
It's not your job.
But we appreciate you coming here and answering these questions. It's a small little podcast, and but this subject touches a lot of people's hearts, wallets, passion. So at the end of the day, you can go gag grouper fishing year round.
Yeah.
Year round. It's just harvesting. So. I'm not sold on the dates, but I am going to get more involved so I can have my input on that. So, but Andy, thank you very much.
One thing I'll add about let me add one more thing that Dylan mentioned, because I think it's important for your viewers. So there's also advisory panels that the Gulf Council utilizes, and Dylan is a member of those advisory panels, right, for reef fish. So people can get involved, not only just interacting with someone like Dylan, but actually becoming one of those advisory panel members. And those essentially provide us feedback and input on all of the recommendations and science and management that we're deciding around the Gulf Council table. So fishermen play a really key role, an important role in terms of the regulations. And it's, I know, time consuming to be involved in a process like this, but if you can't get involved directly, definitely get to know people that are part of the Gulf Council and those advisory panels.
Absolutely, we'll do. That's why we got involved with Dylan. I mean, and I encourage everyone to, like you said. So, well, Andy, thank you so much for joining us again. We really appreciate it. And please let us know if, on the small scale side, we don't have big head boats or anything, but if there's anything that we can do to help research, to help, bring people to go show the grass flats. I mean, when we're out there scalloping, we see the grouper crossing over us. So like you're saying, that they love those grass flats, and especially the small juvenile ones. But if there's anything that we can do to help, further the research and the data, we would love to be involved. So
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Andy. Thank you
for coming aboard with us.
All right, Dylan. Don't go anywhere, though, Dylan. Is he at? Oh, there he is. All right, Dylan. All right, so what's your next steps as the angler, the guy behind Hubbard's Marina? What's your next steps to see this through with NOAA, to do your part and help with better assessments, help with better data? What's your vision on the next steps?
Haley Stevens, shout out to her, and our friends over at Sea Spirit and Ponce Inlet over there on the East Coast is in the comments, and she brought up the mantra: if you're not in the room, you're on the menu. And that's essentially what it comes down to at these federal meetings: is if you're not in the room, if you're not a part of the conversation, it's very easy to be on the menu as far as cuts and decreasing access. So for me, I think I have a responsibility to our industry and to our recreational fishery and to my guests and our family business and our legacy to be a part of these conversations and be in the room to represent Central West and really peninsular Florida in our federal regulations, because I'm blessed to be in a position to do what I love and have this lifestyle that's essentially a part of and thanks to our federal fisheries. So I think my honor, my job is partly to give back my time, energy, and focus to these federal regulations to ensure the access to our recreational anglers and our business and our future generations of Hubbard's Marina and Hubbard's Marina fishing friends, right? So I will be flying out to San Antonio Sunday to this Gulf Council meeting. And as Andy said, I'm a part of the APs. I chair the Reef Fish AP, I chair the Data Collection AP, and I chair the Outreach and Education Technical Committee for the Gulf Council. And I would suggest to anybody who's interested, reach out, join our shows Sunday nights at 7:30 p.m. We do our podcast every week all year. I haven't heard the season thing. That's an interesting idea. I like the idea of taking some time off.
Listen,
might have to look into that.
you can only tell so many people how to catch redfish in our area. So like we have to come up with new content and new stuff. So that was something that actually Brianna suggested, and it's been nice.
I gotcha.
Now, how can people find that podcast? Where do they go?
Yeah, check us out, Hubbard's Marina. We've got a very vibrant YouTube channel, and our YouTube channel is really where I'm focused right now. So we put out content. Anything that comes up fisheries regulations wise, we'll definitely do a YouTube video about it. So make sure you subscribe to Hubbard's Marina on YouTube. And then also check out that Sunday night show, which is live on our YouTube channel every Sunday night at 7:30 p.m. We also stream it live on Facebook too. And we talk about what's going on, what's coming up, and we always answer questions live. So if you have a question, you text it into the show and we talk about it. So each show is kind of a little different because of that. Viewers drive the conversation. So you tell me what you want to know about, hear about, talk about, and we go from there. And we have guests along the way, so it's a good time. And we also do a radio show every Saturday morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. that's streamed live to our Facebook page. And then also we do that news updates every Friday morning as well. So you can catch us on the news, on the radio, or on the live show, or come out and come fishing with us.
I was going to say, when do you have time to fish?
Yes. What's going on?
Try to do it all.
There you go. Madeira Beach. I saw something. Was a city councilman or what was the?
Yeah, man.
Give us the scope on that.
So our jetty, the North Jetty of Johns Pass, is one of the busiest fishing destinations in our region. It's one of the greatest fishing piers around, in my opinion. And it got a little damage from some of these hurricanes we've been having, as you guys well know. And it was a little damaged. So there was some caution tape up, and the very bitter end had maybe 15, 20 feet of damage to it. Well, instead of fixing that for a couple $1,000, pretty easy fix, doesn't need a permit, just simple fix. The city manager got frustrated because fishermen weren't obeying the signs and they were going around the tape and fishing. So in a temper tantrum, he didn't talk to the city commission, the mayor, or the general public, just went out there and jackhammered the whole thing up, created a bunch of rubble and rebar and a dangerous situation. And he destroyed it because people weren't paying attention to signs and caution tape. So his answer was to jackhammer the whole thing up, make it more dangerous, and then put up signs and caution tape to keep people off of it, which obviously didn't work. Then they had to send sheriffs out there. They were criminally trespassing fishermen off this jetty. That was one of the greatest fishing destinations around. Super frustrating. And now it's going to take 2 years and 10 times the amount of taxpayer dollars to put back. Instead of a simple fix without a permit, could have gone really quick. Now it's 10 times more costly. And this is one example of the mismanagement and just total ineptitude of our city manager. And tomorrow afternoon at 2:00, there's a special meeting at City Hall in Madeira Beach. And I finally, after a year and a half of work, have a opportunity to get this guy removed from office. So I'm excited and look forward to seeing everybody come out to remove the city manager from his office.
Let's get him out of there. Wow. Now, can he be held criminally accountable for that?
All I know is if you waste taxpayer dollars and harm tourism in my region, I'm coming after you. I love it.
For him not to people going around caution tape and then going out there with a jackhammer, that sounds a lot like Brianna.
She's running the show, guys, so you might be careful.
He's the one going.
You don't want to make fun of your engineer.
At least Brody's a witness at home. Well, Dylan, man, we can't thank you enough for everything, and best of luck with the. Please keep us updated on that. I'm a lot more interested now. So that's crazy. I can't believe that, but
yeah,
good for you. Keeping on.
One more quick story. So after that whole thing, he paid to put swim buoys in. Didn't talk to anybody. Instead of buoys, he put sticks in, channel markers in for swim buoys, and everybody freaked out because then it's going to interrupt the view from the beach. So he paid for these swim buoys to be put in. Everybody freaked out. He paid to have them removed when he was told not to. Hey, we'll have meetings. We'll talk about it. Don't do anything. Well, he paid to have them removed. Then he had to go out and buy them again to get them put in after the meetings. So he paid for them twice, paid to have them installed twice, paid to have them removed once. So it's just countless examples of just complete
with taxpayers'
mismanagement.
money, not his own. Wow.
They just bought it. They just bought a truck. They just bought a truck for the recreation department and put 20 grand of upgrades on that thing. They put $6 grand in lights on the city truck. That's crazy. Taxpayer dollars. Nuts.
That's nuts. That is absolutely crazy.
Right?
Time for a
Speechless.
Yeah, time for a change.
Yeah.
For a change. Holy smokes.
I thought Citrus County was a little bit on the crazy side, but wow.
No, Madeira Beach city manager, he's off his rocker.
Wow. All right. Well, then, like I said, thank you. I feel like that was a real successful show, and I hope a lot of information came across there to everybody. And guys, if you guys ever have a question, I know Dylan's a very active person.
Oh, yeah.
Get on the podcast. Go check his stuff out. But Dylan, thank you, man.
Appreciate
Seriously.
it.
Yep.
Good to see you again.
Anytime, guys.
Absolutely.
And don't forget, if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too darn busy.
That's all right. I love it. All right, brother. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right. Well,
Awesome.
good information, Billy. Good
Yeah.
information. It really was.
Great people to have on.
Yeah, I just, it was, we weren't sure if Andy was going to be able to make it. Him making it, says a lot. It really does.
Yeah, that's huge for us.
I could
He was
just,
able to take his time for us.
yeah, I inspired to be, Dylan's younger than us. You know that?
That
Yeah.
dude.
So, I encourage everyone to get out there and do what Dylan's doing, get the information. I'm slowly starting to learn how to understand the stuff he's saying, because I've been trying to follow along a little bit more. Yeah. So I'm excited to get to the next point. But guys, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, we'll be going through the comments probably in the morning, possibly this evening, we'll see. But besides that, we miss you all. We'll be back soon, the first Tuesday in September, which falls, I think it's the day after. It's September 1st, so we'll have a good grouper season update for you.
Yeah, be able to see what the first day looks like. The second day.
So thank you to our sponsors, I&D Matthews State Farm and Gary Marriage over there at Nature Coast Financial Advisors, Bubba, Florida Redfish Series. That new tournament series looks awesome, by the way. I'm really excited about that. Extreme I cannot wait for the Extreme Decals Catch of the Week. I do miss that. Seakeeper ride. I'm really excited for another grouper season with Seakeeper, Power Pole. Am I missing any? Abyss batteries. you know, the battery's still going strong. Haven't had any maintenance. Haven't had to do anything. No. But yeah, all this stuff, you know, helps all his anglers out. So check him out, look into it, and guys, we will see you in a couple Tuesdays.
Thanks for tuning in.
Boom.